Loose White dive on him.
This is twice now the Celtics have been first to the floor.
They try to save with Horford. Unbelievable.
Boston first to the floor. So good.
Brown fakes, fires up the three. Bang! Tatum dives on the floor. Everybody dives. Jaylen Brown with the flush. Blocked by Porzingis. He's doing it all. Tatum spinning, driving, layup. Got it. Washington drives. Blocked by White. Oh, what a block from Derek White.
We are back. Ben Vallis and Wayne Spooney here with First to the Floor. How's it going, Spooney?
I'm doing all right, Ben. I'm hanging in there. I don't know if you saw two crazy things happened in the past 24 hours. The Northern Lights you could see here in West Virginia and Ohio, and Andre Drummond hit a three. Just really bizarre stuff going on. The end of the world is nigh, my friend.
Two rarities of the known universe. Amazing.
Yes.
Look, tonight, quick reactions to Netflix's Starting Five documentary. No spoilers, though. The intent is to not make you feel like you've already seen it. If anything, hopefully you'll want to see it more after we talk about it tonight. Then at the back end of the pod, we've got some listener voicemails to get to that have been building up in our Discord channel via Patreon subscribers that we're very excited to start getting through. So let's just get right into it, shall we? Starting Five on Netflix. It was released a couple of days ago, October 9, and it follows 5 top-tier NBA players through their 2023-24 NBA season, including our guy, Jayson Tatum, NBA champion, Jayson Tatum. Now, Spoonie, you haven't seen the documentary yet, is that right? Okay,
That's right. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm going on I'm going to be not on the show all next week because I'm going to Portugal for the week. I've never been to Europe. It's my first trip there. Nice. So I know we have some, there's, I believe the highest population of Portuguese not in Portugal is in Massachusetts. We're very Portuguese influenced. So to the extent we have any Portuguese listeners, DM me some sweet spots. I'll be in Lisbon and the Azores. But I've got it loaded up, ready to go. It's an 8-hour flight. That's what I'm saving it for. But I'm excited to hear your takes out of context.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think we have a nice, healthy European cohort of listeners, so definitely hit Spoonie up with Rex if you got him. But I think it's a good thing that you haven't seen it because, I want to talk about it to the point, like I said, where we don't make our audience feel like they don't need to watch it. So, and spoilers is a weird term to use because obviously it's covering non-fictional events of, within a year ago. But there is a lot that they sort of cover that I don't want to unveil too much. But starting question for the audience, for the live chat here. Who do you think comes off best in this documentary? I've seen that question divide the room, digital rooms, of course, a few times in the short life of this documentary thus far. I'll get to one in a little bit that I think I need Spoonie to sort of therapeutically help me get over. But yeah, a couple of takes on the documentary. You do get some insight and candidness beyond what we're used to. For example, of the candidness, the cameras are in the delivery room with Anthony Edwards' family as his baby is being born.
What?
Which is just insane access to Grant. Come on in, guys. My baby's being born. My wife's in here.
He's halfway out. Head on over.
Yeah, I know. But, you also get some really excellent coaching nuggets, sideline stuff where they've mic'd up Jayson Tatum and Joe Mazzulla. I've got a quick clip here, less than 10 seconds, so we should not be risking copyright breach here to our CLNS overlords. Check this out, Spoonie.
Don't play with the frustration level because the process is there. So instead of that spin out right there, Russell standing right there, go rip screen for him, or you slip out of it and then you come get the DHO from out.
So don't spin move to the back to go do the...
Yeah, because it wasn't really there. You were trying to force it. See the other things that's there, you know what I mean? The opponent is already...
How fucking cool is that? We don't get access to that. And there's so much of that throughout the documentary.
That is absolutely awesome. That's made me want to watch it tonight, but I'm gonna save it. That's the whole point. But dude, Joe is so good at his job. It's ridiculous. The fact that we just plucked this dude out of the video room 2 years ago, essentially, is nuts. And I love the way he communicates with Tatum because you can tell Tatum is this guy is going to tell me how to be successful. So I'm going to sit here and listen to it. And he's asking clarifying questions. He's so don't spin when I'm looking at that. He's you're trying to force it. No, look at what's out there. And I think that's rubbed off on the court with Tatum's game, man. Like he does just like, how often are we just like, what was Tatum doing on that possession?
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost never these days. The occasional step back, but whatever. He's a superstar. He gets those. But like his off-ball movement, like him working in the handoff game and the pick and roll, it's like picture perfect. And like that little 8 seconds, copyright gods, 8 seconds of content, it just shows you like Joe is certainly part of the reason why.
Yeah, there's another like exchange between Tatum and Horford like later in the series during the Pacers series where Horford's like they're clearly not switching the Halliburton pick and rolls at that point. He's like, if I see you like getting into trouble, like I'll just switch it. Just like call me out. I'll try and pay extra attention to you and focus. If I see you getting into trouble, I'll just switch at that time and we'll go back to our normal scheme the next possession. And just like that kind of level of communication where, we're talking about it as we watch the games live on the playback.tv/Celtics blog. But to just like hear that level of insight that the broadcast doesn't give us an insight into, I thought was really cool. And that's like peppered throughout the series across all the players that are covered. Everything KG says in this series is gold. He's like one of the primary interview subjects throughout the series. He's wearing a Celtics hoodie. He's clearly being like brought on to be a type of Celtics consultant. There's one point where he's talking about Arvydas Sabonis, Domantas Sabonis' dad, obviously, which is just like peak television. This is one thing I'm not going to spoil because like you really need to see it, but his like anecdotes about, playing, I guess, all-star games and like coming up against Arvydas Sabonis are just like absolutely classic. Now, Spoonie, I need your help with this. I'm in danger of like falling for LeBron James, which I've never really felt this much in danger of in the past. But in this show, and this goes back to the question for the chat, like who comes off the best in this series? LeBron comes off pretty fucking good. Family man, squeaky clean record. He's such a nice guy. At this point, he's like clearly top 2 all time and still so impactful going into like his 21st season, 22nd season, 21st, I think. He's just so likable in this documentary, and they just do such a good job of positioning that, which is obviously by design. But
wow, an incredibly curated piece of content makes LeBron James look good. That's never happened. That's his entire career, Ben. He's curated everything for you to feel those exact emotions about him. I'm not going to sit here and say LeBron James is a bad guy. He's not. He's just kind of a douche. And I think that's fair. And on the court, I absolutely hate him. Also, I think that's fair. We had a lot of wars with him. I will not let this happen to you. He called everybody poor after he lost in 2011. That's in there. He just will not let it out to the world. He's right, but you're not wrong. You're just an asshole. That saying goes, I think, with something like that from LeBron James. So of course he looks great. He wouldn't have let it get released if he didn't look great. And that's exactly why I don't like him. He can't let himself look bad at any point ever in any exchange. He walked around with The Godfather with a fucking bookmark in the first page for 2 months. True. And then they asked him, what's your favorite quote? And he was like, there's just so many. Stop faking it, dude. Just stop. You could just be like, actually, I never read that. And I would be like, oh, that's the first likable thing LeBron James has ever done in his entire fucking... He actually admitted it's all a facade for 1 damn second. So I'm not surprised he comes off looking great. But man, that's the whole point of his professional existence is to look as good as he possibly can. He got King James tattooed on himself at 17 years old, Ben. You're not even supposed to get tattoos at 17.
I think you're even at risk of falling, putting one foot back in the LeBron James love door, which, as I say that out loud, sounds worse than it was in my mind.
Sounds like a euphemism, my friend.
Absolutely. He's just, he comes off like an absolute champ in this show. And they really start to focus on the legacy side of things and the family side of things. And he's definitely exhibited some douchey behaviors in his career, in his public-facing career, but there's just no questioning the strength of his character, I think, and that really shines through. So I'm curious to hear you come back after your Portugal trip and report back your feelings on LeBron. I would be surprised to hear if they're unchanged after seeing this documentary.
So I fully admit he is objectively a good person, especially for the way in which he was like anointed as the greatest thing that's ever happened to planet Earth when he was like a teenager. Like that's got to fuck you up quite a bit, right? And I do not hate LeBron James the person. I think he is probably a great dad. I think he is probably generally a pretty good dude. I hate LeBron James the basketball player. I'm able to detach those two things. Like when he's not letting his son speak for himself at media day, hate that. When he's like showing up to Bronny's games to be a supportive dad, that's great. That's awesome. Seems like a good dad. The basketball player, I sports hate him. And so I will just want to like keep that clear. Like somebody said, LeBron's an all-time great player. Boston, I think he's the second best player of all time. I am a hater. Yeah, I fully admit that. He's great at basketball. He's a great dude. I hate his sort of basketball playing self and like curated image. That's all. That's all it is. It's not real hate for LeBron. I just think it's kind of fun.
I've spent a lot of time and years of my life like actively hating LeBron, even LeBron the person at times, like before the sort of family life started to exhibit itself more clearly in the public eye. I think that this documentary is coming for like the stragglers who are still in the like I basketball hate, I sports hate LeBron James. So very curious to hear what effect it has on you. Although Spoonie, you've been pretty like devout.
I'm impenetrable.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see the effect it has on you, or lack thereof. We're going to come back in a second, and I want to like focus more in on the Jayson Tatum side of this documentary. But first, we've got to pay the bills. Here's a quick word from our friends over at Game Time.
Alrighty, West Virginia University football just lost an absolute heartbreaker to our biggest rival, University of Pittsburgh, on this last Saturday. That just means WVU's primed to make a comeback this season. I'll be using Game Time to go to the next WVU game and watch them make their way to the Big 12 title, hopefully. Game Time has this new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time's not just great for sports. I was looking at tickets for one of my favorite bands, Lake Street Dive, who's playing in Pittsburgh in October. Super easy. Jumped on Game Time, typed in the band name, found the show. They had a super deal on floor tickets that actually made them cheaper than general admission. One of my favorite features too is the all-in pricing that you can toggle on, which shows you the full price of the ticket before you go to checkout. No surprise fees at checkout. And definitely check out those Game Time picks. They curate the events to make it easier for you to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Woo.
Shout out Game Time. Shout out to the CLNS network for presenting the First of the Floor show. We love those guys. Comment in the chat here from Jamboy. LeBron James ruined Space Jam. That is a stance that I can get behind. I fully agree with that. Space Jam should have been left alone like the beautiful, delicate flower that it is or was. And LeBron James came in and completely ruined it. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Spoonie?
Yeah, I didn't watch the new Space Jam.
Right, okay.
I kind of have
an
admission that I loved Space Jam as a child and tried to rewatch it as an adult, and I was like, oh no, what have I done? I've ruined this piece of nostalgia for myself.
Yeah.
It's so bad. So that is one of his many crimes. I'll say that of LeBron James.
Yeah, we're in agreement there. A couple of things before we dive into the Jayson Tatum side of this documentary. The Patreon, where our fantasy league, still a few spots open. If you sign up to a certain tier of the Patreon, you will get access rather to the First to the Floor NBA fantasy league. We're drafting sometime next week at this point, once that league fills up, which is filling up quickly. The link is in the description below. Whether you're listening to the audio podcast or watching here on YouTube, you can find that link in the description. Join the Patreon, join the fantasy league, join the Discord. And in doing so, you can also leave voicemails that we'll check out on the pod on a regular basis, which we're going to get to at the back end of the show. Also, a comment here from Zachary in the chat. Question for you guys. Which channel should I be watching your videos on, First to the Floor or CLNS? The real, loose answer is wherever you prefer. We're just happy to have you and hang out and react to your comments in the chat and talk C's with you. If you do want to support the show, subscribe to the First to the Floor YouTube channel. That said, if you're over here on First to the Floor, go subscribe to CLNS, show those guys some love as well. But certainly for us, subscriptions, likes, comments, like engagement, that helps put us in favor of the algorithm, I'd say, Spoonie. And the goal is to just like build out this community, have more ongoing discussion, and grow the channel to the point where like we can increase the quality of guests that we get on a regular basis. Not that we don't love all the guests we've already had on.
Yeah, absolutely. Long story short, like it's probably in our self-interest. First to the Floor channel is the best place to watch it for our purposes, but it's like CLNS treats us really well, so it really doesn't matter a ton. But if you truly are like open to choosing the best channel to watch us on, it's going to be the First to the Floor channel, and subscribe to the podcast feed too.
Totally. Well said. So as this series progresses, because early on, the first few episodes, I was like, there's just not enough Jayson Tatum for my liking. Of course, it's got to be fairly evenly distributed across the 5 players. But as the series progresses, especially towards the end, where the other guys get eliminated from the playoffs, you do get a lot more Tatum because he's kind of like the last man standing, rather. So a few other interesting tidbits. Justin Tatum is interviewed in the car ride up from St. Louis to Indianapolis for the conference finals. And he's asked, like, does Jayson Tatum have another level to unlock? And he's like, yes, he absolutely does. He has this asshole side, which, like, you guys don't see. And a lot of people in the media demand, and I actually kind of agree with those people in the media, but he does have that side to him. And I think that's going to come out eventually. Eventually, the media is going to grade on him to such a level that, like, he's not going to be able to help but, like, show that asshole side that he's doing his best to hide. As well, after, I think it's game 3 of the Pacers game, where the Celtics came back, from 18 points down in the second half and won. After the game, when you think it'd be all like smiles and lollipops and handshakes, it just cuts to the back, like under the bleachers, the back tunnels of the arena, and it's like Tatum's entire family grilling him for brutally grilling him for missing free throws. And his grandmother's like, we just won the game. And they're like, no, man, like you can't be missing multiple free throws. You're a superstar, which is cool, I thought. Yeah. And then finally, episode 10, which, I'm not giving anything away here, but it covers the final series and particularly game 5 and Jayson Tatum's amazing game 5. And it really helped like take me back to the emotions of what it felt like to win the championship, because I've rewatched the finals so many times, but you do get like a different vantage point on what that was like. And you do get some insights and some commentary, and you get to hear, what people were saying in certain situations where we didn't get that access before. So it's the same thing again, but from a different vantage point. And it like helped me, I guess, maybe this sounds cheesy, Spoonie, but like rediscover the raw emotions of that time, which I'd kind of missed. And at this juncture of the offseason, we're about to dive into the chase for Banner 19. That was really cool. And it's such a premium, like Netflix-y quality as well. So like for that reason alone, if you're a Celtics fan, you got to watch this shit. It's like must-see TV.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I literally have something coming out tomorrow on Celtics blog about like the Celtics chase for greatness and like how that trickles down to like the fan experience, and how you just like don't get the opportunities to follow a team that has a legitimate shot at being remembered as like Curry Warriors, Bird Celtics, Magic. That does not come. There's like 5 of those teams ever. And they had 4th best net rating of all time last year and won the first title. They pick up 2 more titles, they're going to be in that conversation. And just like, you only get so long on this earth, man. Like, this may never happen for us again. Mm-hmm. Like, legitimately, like the odds are this probably won't be another team like this in our lifetimes that we get to watch. So we need to cherish it now. And, that's like the exact feeling. It's like when I watch the highlights and it's like Timmy's has like the end, like, you know what I mean? He has like the Tatum highlights and it includes like the end when the confetti drops. It's like, man, that was such an awesome day, dude. That was such an awesome night. And I don't know how many more we're going to get, dude. Hopefully like a dozen, but realistically it might only be 1. It might be none. Who knows?
Yeah, we might get like Rick Pitino'd in the next iteration of the Celtics. God forbid. Yeah. So when's that coming out, Spoonie?
I think tomorrow.
Cool.
As far as I know, tomorrow. But yeah, I'll tweet it out. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll find it and probably post it in the Discord.
Yeah, and in the description below, again, this applies to audio and YouTube, you can find like the Celtics blog profile page of both Jake Eisenberg and Wayne Spooney as well. So check those guys out in written form if you haven't already. But yeah, when they cut to the confetti, this is like, through like 8K Netflix cams, and they're on the court as well. But again, from a slightly different angle from the broadcast we've seen, and it's the confetti raining down, and that moment where like Juice finds Tatum and they embrace. The confetti is just everywhere, and they're like telling each other that they love each other. And it's like, I'm watching it last night on the couch with my wife. She's watching something on the TV. I'm watching on my laptop and just trying to hide my face as like tears well up in my eyes, rewatching it again. It's like legit that powerful. It's very good. So check it out.
That's amazing, dude. I'm the crier in our relationship with movies and films and stuff. So like, if I'm watching this next to my wife and I cry, she'll just start making fun of me because it happens pretty often. So there's a scene in Parks and Rec that gets me every time. Yeah. I am. I know I'm gonna need one of those black like eye things. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good. I cut you off. I wanted to hear more about that Parks and Rec scene, but I digress. All right, let's leave it there. I think we will circle back on this, though, because obviously Spoonie's going to watch it, Jake's going to watch it, and once it's kind of been out there in the public space for longer, we can do a bit of a deep dive without feeling guilty about giving like too much of it away. But definitely go check it out if you haven't already. Now, we're going to end the pod getting to our voicemails, the aforementioned voicemails. If you want access to leave us voicemails, it's one of the main reasons to join our Patreon service, really, because you guessed it. You can leave us voicemails. You can join our Discord server, ask us about anything, deliver a hot take, whatever takes your fancy. This first one is from Discord user Rondo of Real Estate.
My other take is about Jayson Tatum and his shooting. I think that's just like the most overblown thing. This is how I know he's a superstar. Tatum, at the end of the day, was still leading us in points, rebounds, assists. I know he didn't shoot well, but he still did put the ball in the hoop at a pretty high level. And last year, he shot 37.5% from three. A lot of those are step-back threes. It's pretty decent. He could definitely do better. But, like, I'm not worried. He's also proven probably more than most, or if not all people in the league that, like, if it's a big game and you need somebody to shoot, he's been the guy who's come up with 50-point games off a lot of threes, a bunch of threes against Milwaukee. There's not many people who have really proven this. Most guys aren't even in any type of conversation here, so I just think it's overblown. Guys, it's Jayson. He's been first-team All-NBA for 3 years in a row.
So the underlying point is that Tatum's three-point shooting woes are, like, overblown. Do you agree or disagree, Spoonie?
Yeah, I think at least as it relates to these playoffs, but I also think like long term he needs to be able to shoot threes. And his shot looks great so far in the preseason, so that's important. That's good. But yeah, like to the Rondo of Real Estate's point, the offense was 11.5 points better per 100 possessions in the playoffs when Tatum was on the court. Like that is not random. That is not sample size. That is Jayson Tatum effectively being our point guard and number one option, whose three ball just wasn't going in for a couple of weeks, which is fine. And I think Jake had a really, really good point a couple of weeks ago where he was like, we're talking about like one more made shot a game. And then all of a sudden his true shooting's like not 54%, it's like 60%. And like none of these games other than like 2 indie games were really close where one more shot would have mattered at all. And the games that were close with Indy, he was actually pretty for some of his more efficient games. So he did show up when we needed him. And like that game 5, like he kind of chucked at the end, I think, for a little stat padding, but that was a masterpiece of a performance in like every facet of the game. So I totally agree that like as it relates to his impact as a player, especially in these last playoffs, it did not matter. Everyone's focused, the non-Celtics fans, I think, are really focusing on it and knocking him down pegs and like overall rankings and stuff like that just because he didn't make some threes for a little while and ignoring the big picture with Tatum. That said, he does need to be able to shoot. Like long term, he can't not shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at the regular season, 37.5% from three last year on 8.2 attempts, like very high volume. Mm-hmm. By the way, 43% on catch and shoot threes, where he averaged 2.2 attempts per game. So, like, he's fine. I would say more than fine. He's not giving anything back to opposing defenses, like with his current supposed shooting woes. And what I mean by that is, like, he only needs to shoot well enough to remain a threat in the mind of the defense. Like, as long as defenses can't sag off him, a la Giannis, then this Celtics team can operate or function the way that it's supposed to. As long as we don't have weaknesses where we can sag off and take attention away from anyone on the perimeter, then the team as a whole can function as designed. And then like he's so good at getting to the paint against single coverage, like forget that. Like teams are doubling him anyway. So the amount of advantages that he creates on the court just by being him is insane. And I think he could even afford to lose a percentage point. Not that we ever want that to happen. And the team could still, for the most part, operate the way that it's designed and churn out wins the way that it did last year. So I agree that it's completely overblown because he's as good enough as the team needs him to be. And that said, I hope I'm not jinxing him here, but like, I think he'll probably be better going into the season. Like clearly there's been some effort in correcting that jump shot form. It looks a lot quicker, a lot smoother. Really excited to see what that looks like with like higher volume, playing like, 38 minutes a game or whatever he's going to average this year and jacking up those looks. So, I think it's well and truly overblown, but haters are going to hate, man. And,
always.
Rondo of Real Estate touches on this. Like he's compared to a lot of other players, but another area where Tatum like excels is like he's a big game player. And like just look at Game 5 of the fucking NBA Finals. Like you said, Game 7 Philly, Game 6 Bucks, Game 7 versus LeBron in his rookie year. Like he gets up for these games regardless of what's going on with his shot. All right, let's get to one more here before we get to an ad break.
Hey fellas, it's Smitty from Worcester. Just want to say I love the show. Been a big fan for a long time. But I got to really, been thinking about types of questions for you guys to ask you guys. And, I was thinking if you had to slow dance with one Celtic at a wedding, which one you taking? All right. Thanks.
Smitty from Worcester. Is that where he's from?
Yeah. Worcester kid. That's cousin Smitty. We're not actually cousins. He's the child of my cousin. So I guess we're second cousins. My mom had much older sisters, and we're pretty similar age. Yeah, just a incredibly important question. It's got to be Al Horford for me. I think the opportunity to stare into his eyes while Whitney Houston plays, blares in the background is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I just think the only problem is that he's so tall. I'm at belly button height, right? Like, can I even look into his eyes from that angle? Which is why I think I would accept Pritchard as an answer, because I feel like it would really, I'd be like, hey, Pritch, I'll put my arms on your shoulders. You get me by the hips. We're good to go.
Hip control is important. Don't you feel like you could like easily make the case for a slow dance with basically every player on the roster, or like maybe even some of the coaching staff? Maybe that's just us and our audience.
I have touched Joe Mazzulla, not taken that. I already made it awkward, so he would probably assault me if that were the case. So I'm going to pass on Joe. But yeah, I think Derek would be very gentle, very sweet. I'm trying to think of like, do you think Cornette would be too awkward? He's really tall, huge feet, it might be a little weird.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to start.
Discussion.
Yes. Yeah, we'll make it quick, people. Don't worry. I think you could start by ruling a few out, like Jaylen Brown, too intense, maybe too in his head, can't relax and have fun with it, not giving me, his dance partner, the attention that I need. Jayson Tatum, maybe a bit silly with it, like not taking it seriously enough, a bit awkward, probably a line of people queuing up to dance with him as well. So I was thinking, like, who has the perfect combination of force yet precision to lead me, the damsel in this case, hopefully, in a slow dance? I think it's Sam Hauser. Just like hand on the small of my back. We're gliding across the room together. I just think he possesses the perfect dimensional qualities and personal characteristics to guide me through the slow dance that I want to be guided through. But folks in the chat, there's so many good options here.
Yeah, I feel like Drew would have a very like he's dancing with a child. Like, come on, net left and then right,
he's
and
standing on his feet.
Yeah. You got this.
Yeah. There's really no wrong answer here.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Smitty. Can't wait to hear more from Smitty as the season progresses. All right, quick ad read and then we'll get right back to it. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? I don't know. No, seriously, I don't. Please tell me. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. I use Prize Picks before most Celtics games to add a bit of spice to my viewing experience. You just choose less or more on a player stat, and this is where you can take advantage of your divorce level Celtics knowledge. For example, right now I'm picking more on Tatum to average 26.9 points per game this season, and if I could, I'd take more on Al Horford, flooring us all with his eyes every game. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Question in the chat from the Jamboy. Great questions from the Jamboy today. Would you rather dance with one of the players or grapple with Joe Mazzulla, Spoonie?
Dude, Joe would not have mercy on you. He would probably choke you out to the point of like near asphyxiation. So like definitely dance. That's not even a question for me. Like, damn.
Yeah. Have you seen there's a clip of Adam Sandler? This is like maybe 10, 15 years ago on some late night show, but he's talking about like, I can't remember what movie he was filming, but Shaq was on the set and they had a court on the set where they would like ball between takes. And he described being dunked on by Shaq and how much of an awesome feeling it was. Yeah. I think grappling with Joe Mazzulla would be a similar vein to that, where it's like, just please floor me, Joe. Anyway, like Eric is saying in the chat here.
Trend, Eric, we've long passed. We've jumped the shark with the innuendo like 2.5 years ago, I feel like. The second Pritchard got drafted.
It's part of the vibe. All right, let's get to the next voicemail.
Last year, the Celtics couldn't run a bench rotation that was all bench. They always had to have somebody out there who was one of the real big boy starters to make sure the bench didn't implode. What we've seen in the first two games against Denver is the Celtics running a bench rotation that's all bench, and not just sort of, okay, let's see if we can endure it for 4 minutes or 5 minutes. They're building on the lead. They're giving Hauser the opportunity to shoot. They're giving Peyton, is taking advantage of the opportunity to shoot. I think what you're going to see this year, come the regular season, is Joe feeling comfortable enough to run bench rotations where Tatum and Brown and Drew and Derek White are all getting rest together, so that you're going to see them fresher for the playoffs, not because they're getting load managed necessarily, but just because the bench guys are good enough to carry the water for that, 10, 15 minutes a game and, help everybody out. So yeah, Walshy's in the mix, Springer's in the mix, and that's even before they start perfecting their shot. You get them a 3-point shot that's going in 33 to 36% of the time, and this Celtics team goes from being damn good last year to outright scary this year.
Thanks, RJ, for the voicemail. Love RJ, very active member of the First of the Floor community. Spoonie, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so one thing I vehemently disagree with RJ on is that Jaylen Springer is in the mix. I'm not sure that's true. Walshy, maybe. I think I need to see a little more out of him, more consistency in these next preseason games. But I think if anyone's going to get a crack to start the season as like the ninth man, essentially, it will be Walshy. I don't know, man. Like, part of me just thinks like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. With Tatum, Hauser, Cornette, and Pritchard on the court, the Celtics were like a plus 25 per 100 possessions with those four guys. Like, the Tatum and the bench units have been killing teams and like blowing them out for a very, very long time. So I wouldn't hate seeing it. I just think part of Joe is going to be like, none of those guys can be trusted to truly like run the offense or draw to crack that sort of outer shell of the defense and get the offense moving. And I think like Pritchard's a good defender in context. Hauser's a good defender in context. Luke Cornette's a good defender in at some point you hit like critical mass of like guys who are good in certain situations, but like you can't have five guys who are only good in certain contexts. You need one of those dudes like Drew or Derek or Jason or Jaylen out there to kind of like plug the holes defensively for some of those guys and like kind of keep your switching up. So I think we'll see more 4 and 1 starter bench units, but I'm not sure we'll see a ton of 5 guy units.
Yeah, we need an adult in the room. Well, like with every lineup, we need at least one parent supervising the kids, so to speak. And like preseason rotations is just not real life. We need at least one person who is going to keep like multiple defenders thinking about them at all times so that an advantage can be created. If we're just going with like purely the Walshies, the Springers, even with like Hauser and Pritchard out there, I just don't think that puts enough pressure overall on the defense. And that's not even taking into consideration, you know, what we would therefore lack defensively as a result as well. So we don't have a lot of size coming off the bench either. And if we do, it doesn't come with a lot of like durability or lateral quickness as well. So like we just need someone who can hold down the fort with what I would call those supplementary players as well. I don't think you see many teams go to 100% bench either. It's just not common in the regular season because we're trying to win games. That said, I guess to RJ's point, if we can get to that point where like Walshy is like such a defensive anchor, I don't think it's going to happen this year, maybe not even next year, maybe not ever, dare I say. Then I'd love to get to that point, but I just don't see it happening. But great question. All right, final voicemail here.
The Celtics will win banner 19. Actually, for maybe a little bit more normal one, how about if we have a pool on when KP comes back? I mean, he was doing running and light contact before media day, for instance.
Shout out to Latvian Pete for that one. When is KP coming back? There's been a lot of discussion on this lately because, you know, it was quite a rare injury that he had at the end of last postseason, and he was able to play through the injury before he had the surgery. I don't know if that indicates the severity of it or not. He's had the surgery. He's been looking good in limited glimpses via social media. Media are talking highly of his speedy recovery. But I think we have a more conservative approach between the two of us, Spoonie. We've long...
Oh, yeah.
longed for Al Horford never to play, really, unless he has to. Where do you think on the calendar the KP reinsertion is going to occur?
Yeah, I think Pete's got a really good point of like, a part of me thinks like if the finals were starting tomorrow, he would play. You know what I mean? But since it's the regular season, and this team like essentially goes 3 deep at center, and 3.5 with Keita, who's like can play 10 minutes and you're fine. He's not bad. I think they'll be just extraordinarily conservative with him. So Jamboy says I don't want to see him until March. I mean, there's some logic to that. It gives him a month and a half to kind of tune up until the playoffs and knock off the rust and get back in shape. I think we need him to get like in better shape, just a little bit longer run up time. I think, like if I say, I think last time I said like December 25th, like over under, where are you going? And you and Jake both said over. I said under. I actually would change that. I think if we go January 1st is the over under date, I'm probably taking over like middle of January if I had to guess, just because there's no reason to bring him back early.
Yeah, I think rather than the question being like, when will we need him in the regular season? The question needs to be, how long will the ramp up to the playoffs be? And then like bring him back at the like date wise at the beginning of that ramp. So if you decide that you need 2.5 months to get him conditioning wise ready for the playoffs, then bring him back with that amount of time to go, rather than, you know, we're floundering here with our team. We're not on track to win even 50 games. Better bring KP back in. I just think, first of all, that's very unlikely to happen. And secondly, to bring him back, under the proviso of that urgency, we need you to hit the ground running. We need wins from your production, KP, as opposed to we need you to come in here, take your time, and get your body and your mind right for the playoffs. That could be problematic. So I think it's going to be always going to be a question of like playoff readiness rather than regular season impact. So I would say after January.
Yeah, Indy kind of rushed Hallie back because they need him so bad. Well, they didn't in the playoffs, but they did in the regular season, or at least they thought they did. So I like, there's just no need for this team to rush anybody back except maybe Jayson Tatum, just because he has such a profound impact. But even last year, We were fine with Tatum off the court. Like, we were good last year without him. So this team's loaded. It's going to take more than one injury, probably more than two, maybe more than three injuries to have like a serious effect on their ability to win games. And plus, like, we did the East over-unders for the Patreon pod. There is a lot of very bad teams in the East, and we play
Yes.
two of them 4 times each. So that's, that should be a nice 7-1 right there. So, and we don't need the 1 seed. I think this team is going to be so confident in the playoffs. Like, they're not going to need to, they'll probably get it, but they don't need to gun for it this year.
Maybe Philly will get the 1 seed, but they'll lose in the second round anyway, so it won't matter.
Again,
It'll default to us in the conference finals. It was interesting what Joe was saying in an interview recently, like once they landed back in Boston, that Al Horford is going to play at some point during the preseason, but he is open to the idea of coming off the bench in the regular season, even prior to Kristaps Porzingis coming back into the lineup, which I thought was interesting. It definitely aligns well with Al Horford desires, Spoonie, of like, please never play ever, unless we really need you.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Because Tilly is so offensively challenged, I imagine. Oh, and Cornette really is too. They're kind of really similar offensive players in a lot of ways. Like, it makes sense to kind of minimize that impact by having them start around 4 elite offensive players, and then you can have like the Al Pritchard pick and pop, pick and roll is sort of the foundation of the bench offense with some Hauser off-ball stuff mixed in. So it makes sense. I mean, I hope that's what happens. Yeah, because like, we are the team play Al 15 minutes a night party. So it was really interesting. And I think it's like kind of a smart tactical decision too, to sort of get the most out of your backup guys, your non-Al Horford centers, and just kind of limit the wear and tear on Al.
Mm-hmm, for sure. All right, this was fun. Join the Patreon, leave us a voicemail. We'll definitely get to it on the pod. And shout out to the chat for joining us live here on YouTube. We'll be back live on this channel very early Monday morning, like 5 or 6 a.m. morning, Monday, US Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be a Sunday night primetime Aussie pod with myself, Jake Eisenberg, and the OGs, Jackson and Joe. Looking forward to that one. Wayne Spoonie, love your work, man. Until next time, go Celts.